Okay, we're recording. Welcome, ladies,
Thank you.
to the Experiencer Dialogues. Well, there was a recent inspiration that perhaps we pick a topic to really zero in on and share from, and hopefully it will provide insight or inspiration or empowerment, uh, maybe a new understanding for those who might listen in the future about the being an experiencer, and also my particular passion of exploring the evolution of an experiencer. So the topic today is going to be about the language of the cosmos and how we all came to over our lifetimes, because we're all lifetimers generally, or long-term experiencers here. How did we first get introduced to this language? What was that like? And how did we learn to work with it over time? And how has that changed or integrated? What does that look like today? And so before we begin, I just want to invite everyone to close their eyes and do some deep breathing, and go within and say your own inner prayer for this gathering. State what you intend. Do it in the way that you feel most comfortable. So let's just do this through a few deep breaths. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, let's bring our attention back here. I felt this sweetness arrive, just this whew, like a flower blossoming. So that felt really good. Okay, so let's just, I just want to invite whoever wants to speak first about, when I was introducing the topic, is there something pressing right now with you that you really want to share from any point in your evolution, about how you adapted to this language, what it's like, how you understand it? Is it downloads? Is it dreams? How does it come?
Well, the thing that occurred to me when you were saying that was that it was certainly a process over a lifetime. It has changed over time dramatically. And in the beginning, I didn't really even know what it was, you know.
Right.
I mean, my first remembered experience was when I was 2.5, and it was in waking time. And there was no like verbal communication. It was just kind of like being in the presence of these two beings, and being handed a little dog. And then the little dog growled, and I kind of got scared. I wasn't scared until then, and handed it back, and then they sort of disappeared. Everybody disappeared. And that's sort of been the thing that has informed my life since. I haven't known what it meant, what it is. It's gone through different iterations in my mind. And then, hearing voices, indistinct voices, and thinking that I was crazy as a youngster. I was up into preteen. Then when things started developing, I guess maybe is the right word. It started to come as ecstatic poetry. It would just, I would feel like this pressure in me building, and I didn't know what it was or anything like that. And then just boosh, this ecstatic poetry would come out. I would write it. And, you know, and that would another couple of years and it would happen again. And that was sort of up into my 30s that would happen. I still didn't know what it was or what to call it. I just thought, cool, every now and again I write poetry.
With great inspiration. Yes, I did not
Right.
know this about you, and I share that same experience.
Oh,
We
okay.
didn't know that before. Yes.
Cool. No, we didn't. No.
Awesome. I love it.
So yeah, that, and then in '89, I think it was, I had the experience of doing a lot of world travel, and had a couple of really kind of monumental initiations, I've sort of come to call them, when I was in Assisi. The first one was an electrical charge. I was in the Basilica of Santa Chiara, and I was given a card by a nun through a grate, and when I touched the card, this electrical bolt went through me, and I had this shocking awareness that the only thing anybody would ever see of this woman was the tips of her fingers and her toes underneath her habit. And I don't know what that meant, but I had to sit down. I mean, I was completely like blown. And then about a week later, still in Assisi, I had an experience in San Damiano, the first church that, and I'm not Christian oriented. I have to say that. I have had a love affair with St. Francis, but it has nothing to do with Christianity per se, right? So I went to hear Mass in Umbrian, the language St. Francis would have heard Mass or said Mass in. And I knew that it was going to be a very powerful experience. But again, I had another kind of like initiation where we had taken communion. I was back in my seat and I heard somebody somewhere behind me sobbing quietly. And I started crying, and I bent down to my rucksack to get a Kleenex. And all of a sudden my head exploded in this golden light. And I thought, shit, I don't want anybody to see me. You know, I thought that this was a physical thing going on. And, you know, so that happened, Mass ended. I got out of church without anybody going up to me, whoa, what happened to you? Which I completely expected. And back at the pensione where I was staying, then what happened for a whole day, like it went through the afternoon into the night and into the next day, some of it, it felt like somebody had those things that when they're doing open heart surgery, and if you've ever seen a video or whatever, you know, where they open the chest cavity, it felt like somebody was opening my chest cavity, and it was painful, but it was wonderful at the same time. So this was obviously some kind of communication, but I never figured out what it was, and then eventually just started calling it initiations. That was in '89. And in 2000, finally, through this being that I met, I think I talked about it in one of our last things, that I had having a friend, taking a friend to Oregon, and she sent me some things, and it was a book. And then I discovered that I had this relationship with this being, and he then taught me what I then called channeling. Before he left, he was with me for about a year and said, I have to go now. And, you know, and I was bereft for like 2 years because I thought this was it. You know, we have this amazing, like tangible relationship, but channeling started. And when the channeling, as I call it, you know, where I would not audibly hear, but sort of feel words. I don't know how to explain it. It was like feeling words, and I would write it down. And the first time that happened, it was again kind of like the ecstatic poetry experience, where I would feel something calling me off to the side. I couldn't hear it, but it wasn't audible. And then information would come through. It wasn't like I asked questions. It was like the information that wanted to be given to me was given to me. So I was in the shower one night and this started happening, and I thought, oh, I got to get out of the shower. So, quick, get out of the shower, and was writing it down. And what happened over a couple of months was that I could only sustain this for about 20 minutes, and then I'd be so tired I had to go to sleep for about an hour or so. And I would be out like that and sleep hard. And that was in 2000. And so that for me kind of, I would embrace channeling and then say, I don't want to do this anymore, and that kind of like went back and forth for a while. And finally, I think just sort of, I guess maybe the last 6 years, it slightly shifted again, where it was more of a co-working sort of thing. Like I would get downloads, which would then be translated out, but how they were translated out was sort of through ideas that I would write down and a lot of research. And the research would come to me, these books that would corroborate what the downloads were. And then I would get these corroborations in different areas. I was doing some cross-discipline research about the Great Year. And about halfway through it, I realized that, wait a minute, this is channeling. This is not me. This is not coming solely from me. I'm being directed, and all this neat information is coming out. And so that's kind of where it is, where we're kind of like, they've sort of explained to me that for me, for whatever reason, I need to have a kind of a scaffolding of foundational information about a subject, and then they can give it to me. I can't like all of a sudden have a physics expose come out of my head. That's not going to happen for me, So I am directed to areas that I then explore, and then they can give me information. And the best example I can give of that is I've been an astrologer for a really long time. At the end of 2015, they told me in a waking, I'll wake up and I'll get a sentence or something like that, come through. And they said, study the sidereal zodiac. So I said, okay, and I did. And that took off. And so by the middle of the next year, summer of 2016, and on into the end of 2017, this downloads and downloads of stuff, where I then was able to create this whole other system of astrology readings. I call it goddess astrology. And it was just this magnificent experience. I don't even know how to explain it, but downloads would come, boom, and it would be like nothing that I could ever have thought up in my head. Never. So that's kind of like my evolution of how that went. Lots of different ways, but it was getting me to where I am now. And I imagine there'll be some other tweakings,
Yeah, of course. Thank you. So that was Zuzanna V, and you're currently living in
Virginia,
Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
I just have a question for one of the things that you said. When you said, and so then they showed me, or then they told me, what does that look like?
Yeah, right.
How do you know? Because I say that a lot too.
Yes.
And so now
Yeah.
I'm just I'm curious,
right.
And then they said, it's like, we just take it for granted.
I
right?
know.
Yeah.
And then to try to explain it, that's a whole nother ballgame, isn't it? Well, it's like feeling words again. It'll be something out of left field where it couldn't have come from me. It's not like anything I've been thinking about or would have entertained anyway. It's an out of left field sort of event. And if they show me, then I'll get, dreams have always been very, very important to me. I get lots of messages through dreams. And through artwork. I often try to make something or a piece of artwork that has come from the dream, either an image in the dream or something that was shown to me in the dream, like this necklace I have. I don't know if you can see it. It's like a little triangular thing with circles in the apexes. That was shown to me in a dream like this January or something like that. And they were showing me how to make it. So I knew that I was supposed to make it, and I did. And I've been wearing it, and I love it. It feels really cool. And
Awesome.
yeah. And then other times it'll be like a movie inside or a movie out here. Like I had with my boxes dissolving was a movie out here. And then with that being that I met in 1999, he was actually outside of me and like a transparent sort of. And it would be, I hate the word telepathic, but it would sort of be like telepathic communication. I could hear his voice in my head. I could feel his touch. You know, he got rid of a migraine once for me when I was in the car driving around. I had lots of errands I had to do, and I could feel a migraine coming on. And we were at the point in our relationship where I said, you know, can you help me out with this? And I could feel this light touch on my head. And about 2 seconds later, before the light changed, we were at a light. It was gone. So,
wow.
Again, varied. And you just sort of know. I mean, with the channeling, I've had a lot of challenges with going, okay, is this just me? Are you just losing your mind? You know, I haven't always been like, well, right, yeah, let's tell everybody this, you know, of course this is real, you know. No. So it's been very like, okay, you know, we'll just kind of keep this quiet. And I finally got to the point where I was saying to them, you know, okay, I don't mind anything you want to tell me, but it's got to be relevant to my spiritual path, and it has to be corroborated in some way on the outside, at least part of it. And they've kept to that that pact, you know, so that I don't ever take anything as like God's gospel sort of thing, in you know, like these weird things or anything. But it's been corroborated enough for me, and I've gotten to the point now in my life where I feel trusting and have faith, and I have more of a knowing when it comes that, yeah, this is has veracity, you know.
And how much of it have you shared?
Not much.
Okay.
Not much. Only with a few people. I've had one student with my goddess astrology, goddess consciousness work, and she was right there with it, you know. And with other sort of messages, I went through a short period of time in 2000 where I was sharing it with a few friends and doing like readings for them and everything. And I think I freaked myself out because right after that, I just stopped. I'm like, no, not doing that. And probably what I think with where I've gone with it now, probably that was because I wasn't supposed to go in that direction. You know, with that kind of, you know, like having a session where people come to me as a channel sort of thing, you know, that wasn't supposed to be happening. If it comes up in some other form or fashion, you know, then that's sort of okay right now. I think it's changing at the moment. It is. It's changing at the moment. And we'll see where that goes.
Okay, thank you. So anything that you want to share, you're saying it's changing at the moment. But what is your overall relationship with this data and this relationship with non-human intelligence in this moment?
Yeah, in this moment, it's very close. It's very loving. It's very like my best friends sort of thing. You know, it's very, very different than it started out. You know, as a young person, I sort of when I feel the call, and it's gotten lighter and lighter and lighter. You know, in I think it was like 86 or something like that. I was on pilgrimage to another kind of spiritual place, and I was by myself, and I heard the words loud outside of my head, teach yoga. So I did, and it all just kind of like opened out before me when I got back home, you know. And I expected things to go like that, but it didn't. And it took me a couple of decades to figure out, wow, they're getting quieter and quieter, not louder and louder. So they were training me to go more in. And that's been a really important lesson to me. So now, you know, a lot of meditation, a lot of, you know, states will alter, and I'll feel it, and I'll go, oh, I'm supposed to meditate, I'm supposed to be quiet, I'm supposed to focus, or whatever, you know, something like that. And information will come through. I might not know what that information is or can articulate it right then, but usually what happens in the space of a few days or something like that, I'll be able to start writing some stuff down.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think is like downloads, where I get kind of like a block of energy come in. There isn't any way to articulate that, and then over a period of time it comes out as something.
Yes.
Either words or a direction, you know, or an inspiration to explore, something like that.
Mm-hmm. I can relate to that as well. And my sense of what you've just shared, Zuzanna, is that it's for, I'm just going to venture to guess, for people like us that are gathering and communicating in this way, this contact has been more about blending and becoming this energy and these aspects of ourself. Like our path, I mean, this is what I'm feeling about you. Our paths are not about being these communication devices for these great and powerful beings that we are not, right? We are growing into that presence and learning how to be it and embody it. So that I just felt like I wanted to say that, and I'm sure this will come out more talking with the others as
really
well.
Good. That's really good. And to me, how I'm starting to feel about it, it's like discovering how to communicate with really close friends and allies that you can't communicate in the normal way you're used to talking like we are.
Right.
There's another way of doing it, and there's even like a whole nother language kind of thing going on often. And it's to me, it's learning how to be in loving communion with them, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it makes sense.
Yeah. Wonderful, beautiful, loved it. And I want to invite Janine or Jeannie at this moment to, did any questions come up from you about what Zuzanna shared before you go into sharing, you know, your own experiences?
For me, I didn't have any questions, but I had a lot of aha moments and like Zuzanna was describing things that are exactly the same for me. So yeah, I totally relate to everything you said.
Yeah.
Great.
No questions, just total recognition.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a question for you, Zuzanna. A couple of things that you said, I wanted to hear more about the actual content, you know, just, and not looking for specific details. Did you find that there were themes that kind of evolved over time and then you went back to, or was this information that you felt drawn to from a human perspective and then you were given more? How did that play out for you? Like, what was the...
That's a good question. Thank you.
Fantastic question.
Yeah, there's two kind of parts to that. Part of it has been kind of like a mentoring thing for me, of helping me to accept myself and guidance forward. And you know, I shared in one of the other talks where I've been told for the last 7 years, you know, almost like every time, like, do follow what excites and enthuses you and inspires you. You know, that's just been, you know, and on and on and on. They've been saying that to me, drilling it into my head. And then the other one, see, I tangentialize and can get off track. So that was the mentoring sort of thing. A lot of the information that I would get has been very personal. Some of the information that I would get, sort of like, say, in the 2000s when I was doing the channeling reading sort of stuff with people, is I could see people's past lives really easily, very clearly. And I didn't see that it was helpful to the recipient. And I didn't want to be doing something just because it's cool and neat, you know? I didn't see it being helpful to the recipient at all.
I understand that.
Yeah. And then recently I've started getting stuff that's more general or maybe collective directed, whereas I've been going through my notes of channeling over the last 2019 and have been staggered because I don't remember it. It comes through, I don't remember it. I could read it over and over for a bit and then I won't remember it in a couple of months or whatever, even a week. But being told about this, they used words that we've said, I was born for this. This is what you've been waiting for. Talking about this time we're in now currently, and then that was in January of 2019, and then in March I got some really, like, almost basically without even saying coronavirus. I mean, they mentioned the word disease, and that, like, people who saw that as a disease would suffer because there is no cure. It's not a disease. It's an energy that's flowing through, that's changing our consciousness. And that's what they said. And that's what we're all talking about. And that was like a year ago. I had no clue what they were talking about, but thank God, everything prior to 2019 I threw out. I thought, oh, this is just bullshit. It doesn't mean anything, whatever. I was still that late on in the process, I was wondering about it, you know? So yeah, does that answer your question, Jeannie?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you.
Okay.
It's just also fascinating to me.
I know. Just like
have to make yourself articulate it. I mean, that's a real challenge. So I appreciate the opportunity to do so because it makes me really try to think about it and try to articulate it.
Yeah, it's part of my passion is to create the space for this so that we can reflect with each other and more can emerge because we have the space for it to emerge. Whereas the patterns before are, oh, everybody thinks this is crazy and I got to hide this stuff. I got to just file it away. So I very much relate to the always questioning it. So
I've noticed that from this perspective now, looking back, I noticed that I shut a lot of stuff down because since we've all been talking and getting the information and like kind of like validation sort of stuff, I've opened up a lot more where I'm aware of a lot more and a lot sooner. And that's been really interesting, that process. So thank you all.
Absolutely. Yes. And they told me this years ago that wait till you start to talk with each other. You're just going to be wowed. Like it's going to change you. It's going to change everyone around you. And so that's why I continue to follow this guidance. And that's why I continue to be excited about it. And I'm so grateful for all of you. Thank you, Zuzanna. And, obviously we're going to continue on the conversation, but I just kind of wanted to highlight each one of us. So who'd like to share next?
I will go next then.
Janine Savion, and Janine is from New Zealand.
Yes. Hi. I would just like to start off by saying that my guidance actually said to me when you invited me into the group today, my guidance said to me, this will be very good for you to verbalize what you know and what you are holding, what you're carrying, who you are, your life experiences. I'm good at typing the words, putting the words out, but verbalizing it is so yes, I totally relate to what the conversation that we've just had. So,
Yeah, wonderful.
so for me, wow, gosh, I remember being in the bassinet, the tiniest child, and I struggled. I was in a moment of struggle of feeling like I didn't fit in this little body. And I remember fighting inside the bassinet, thinking, what am I doing here? You know, I mean, I had loving mum and dad, but it's like, what am I just, there was a, oh, have I made the right choice? Am I in the right place? You know, so, and I had that tool 3 times when I was a tiny baby. And then I started getting the friends that would come from other realms and dimensions. And they were always full of play and full of light and lightness. And I was with them all the way through to right through school, and then just breaking it down into chapters. I became a manager of a metaphysical spiritual shop for a couple of years, totally out of context to what I'd been working in all that time. But all of a sudden this opportunity presented itself, and I said to the team, I haven't ever worked in a shop before, let alone managed one. And they said, dear one, it's a portal, and you'll be anchoring your light within this portal, and you're going to get to meet in the flesh many of the beautiful beings that have been your playmates all your life. So I thought, oh, this is going to be interesting. So, you know, and within the shop, like we had water features, we had crystals from all around the world, beautiful music, beautiful books, Buddhas and Kuan Yins and Mother Mary's tattoos, and you name it. We had the vibration of every beautiful thing in that shop. And then one day this young girl walked through the door, and she kind of just walked in, didn't look at me, and she was just touching things around the shop. And I could feel her vibration, and I thought, oh my goodness, I recognise this one. And then she came over to the counter, and she just stared me right in the eye, and she says, hello, lovely to meet you. And I said, I know who you are. And she just gave me this great big smile, and we had this beautiful connection, and then chatted for a little bit about really on a human level, and then she left. And over the 2 years I was in there, I would have had probably at least a dozen exchanges like that. One elderly man, he came in, and he was in the shop for about 2 hours, and he just walked around picking up the cards, looking at the books, reading the backs of CDs, and I could feel him the whole time. And I thought, oh my gosh, he's one of my angelic beings. And then after about 2 hours, he came over to the counter, and he just said to me, good morning, dear one. And it's like this light went between his eyes and my eyes, and you know, it was such a gift every time. There was no deep message from any of them. They just embodied a person, came into the shop with the permission of the person, apparently, came into the shop and greeted me in the flesh, and then walked out the door again. So it's interesting that I'm even saying that right now, because it wasn't part of what I was thinking about talking about.
I love it.
Great.
So what happened was that the team said to me one day a few years ago, you've spent your whole life out in the realms and playing with these beautiful beings and learning about love, learning about lightness. And they said, but you're not grounded. You're not deeply grounded here in this reality, because it's not something that's been in your life, you know. So they said, we're wanting you to become a lot more grounded. And I said, oh, okay, what does that look like? And they didn't answer that. They just said, it will happen. And so it was about 2020 now. So it was 9 years ago that that I had a major heart operation, and on the operating table I died. And in that moment, I remember, I've actually got conscious memory of an aspect of me moving out like in a flow the team told me later that they took me dancing. And at that time, that's what they said. And at that time, I felt a higher aspect merge through. So we kind of went through each other and into the body. And then when I came out of that operation, I was a very, very different person. And I said to the team, what am I? Am I walking or something? And they said to me, you've merged a higher aspect of yourself from another timeline, dear one, has come in. And I said, why? And they said, the other aspect of you that was here experiencing was very tired. So, and that's all they said. They wouldn't go into detail. And so they said to me it would take about 5 years to blend with the cellular memory in this body. And now I'm fully blended. So now there's no separation. I know all memory of what this body's been through, but I don't have emotional attachment to a lot of it from the youth and that. So, but I know I've kind of gone off track from the theme here, but it's kind of building into the fact that this aspect was more grounded and was more present here, and was kind of a heavier, stronger aspect, but at the same time much lighter and higher, all at the one time. And then in the last 3 years, I was put in a place in Auckland with a lady who was very, very grounded, deeply spiritually aware, but very, very grounded. She was deeply into the earth, the garden, the devics and elementals, the very grounded pan energy. And so we were like chalk and cheese, but she taught me to be right here in my body. And she would make sure sometimes if she felt I was starting to become a bit fluffy floaty, she would grab me by the shoulders and bang me sort of down.
I love it.
Wow.
But for me, the communication with my team, like there's just so many arms for me at the moment going off in so many directions of pieces that I could talk about here. You know,
I understand. Believe
I've
me.
got to, yes, I'm trying to bring myself back.
Yeah, I understand.
But for me, when my team talk to me, and what's happening right now in this moment is the blending, is the merge with the collective energy of the team that have walked with me. And so right now they're saying to me, we want you to let go of saying, they say, they said, and say, I feel, I say. But it's very hard habit to break.
It really is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so in the moment I'll say, oh, them, the team, you know, and they said to me, it is all you, dear one, even if it's coming from a collective, it's not outside of yourself, it's within you. So you may get your information from deeper, more expanded sources than most human beings, although everybody has the capability of doing that. But it's you that's speaking it, it's coming from you. So the sense of personal self-empowerment is, I say this. And so I am trying to work on that. It's a work in progress, that. But when they communicate with me, there's many different ways. So there's during my sleep state, early hours of the morning, very early hours of the morning, and I awaken with like what I've always called a parcel of knowing. So it's like something's been dropped in there, and it feels to me like it's a package or a parcel, but within that there is a huge, enormous amount of information. And then it feels like it's just been plonked, you know. It's I guess because there's no memory of it coming in, it feels like it's just been plonked in there. And then there is the threads. So for me, there's like, I know that I've been given something. I haven't got the awareness right in the moment. Somebody might trigger it that needs to hear that message. So I know there's a thread. So I then have to just say, I'd always say to my flatmate in Auckland, just a moment, I've just got to find the thread. and then I see this like this golden thread, and when I find it, I'm immediately connected to it, and then there's a download. I can say, so yeah, it's strange. These threads have been there for many years now. So listening to Zuzanna earlier, and you were talking about your initiations around the world. For me, I had a huge initiation in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid in Giza, and
Wow.
excuse me, and the team said to me, there's a deep initiation for you, dear one, and we'd like you to go to Egypt. And it was like, oh, right, Egypt, sure. So
I'll get my ticket right away.
They said to me, hold the energy for it, hold the vision of it, feel it in your heart, and we'll take care of the details. And they often say that to me. If I hold the vision, hold the trust and the belief in whatever it is, then they take care of the details. So the next thing I know, I'm sitting on the computer reading something, and this woman's website comes up that I've never seen before, have no idea, but often they do that. It'll just come up on the computer. Mm-hmm. So this woman lived in the village at the base of the pyramids in Egypt, and she took in clients and guests and took them on what she called at the time soul immersion journeys. So I thought, well, there's a reason that she's come up. So I contacted her, and long story short, I went over there for 3 weeks, and I lived in the village with the villagers at the grassroots level, which by crikey was a huge journey, was a very huge journey. And on the and when she met me at the airport, she says to me, you're here for an initiation. Well, I never told her that. So I immediately thought, okay, that's clicked a bit of proof in there, you know.
Right.
And so I said to her, when is that? And she said, I have no idea. She said, I'll just be told when it is. I'm just the conduit for it. So it was the second to last day I was there, and she said, we go up to the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid. She said, this afternoon for your initiation. And I went, oh, okay. That was a journey in itself. Just getting up to the King's Chamber, claustrophobic and dark, and people.
Ooh, yeah.
And, you know, you've been in there, Eileen.
I have not, but I'm claustrophobic, so I was feeling that.
It's like going down
I always think of that. I'd never be able to do this because I'm claustrophobic.
Yeah, well, I have that closed-in feeling as well. And anyway, here's this tunnel that I had to walk up. These steps were only made for one small Egyptian at a time, but we had tourists coming and going of all shapes and sizes, trying to get up this very dark and stooped right over, you're right down. So I was very pleased to actually get into the King's Chamber, and she had already said to me, when we get in there, you're going to find it's absolutely chock-a-block with tourists. And she said, when you hear the guards' feet coming up these stairs, she said, look at me and keep watching in my eye and do not move your gaze. She said, because they'll clear the whole chamber out. We need it emptied. I said, why are they going to do that? She said, don't ask questions. She says, we've got a lot of help here, so it's going to be emptied out. So, you know what? I was in that chamber with her. We were in there like sardines, and the next minute we hear these stomp, 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 stomp as these guards come up the stairs. And she just swung me around, and I stared at her right in the eye, and the guards all calling in Egyptian, and they're moving people out, and then all of a sudden we're by ourselves. And I said to her, wow. I said, so why? And she said to me, they were told that there were people up here praying, and they don't allow prayer in here. So I'm meditating, sorry, not praying, meditating. So she said, I said, did you have a hand in that? She says, no, I did not. So anyway, and then we did the initiation, and it's like we're in the middle of a pyramid, and it's like this beautiful golden light came down right over us. And of course, I look straight up to see where it's coming from, and she says to me, don't moves your focus away from what's happening here. But I thought, well, this is like a MacGyver movie, you know, it's like, what's happening here? But anyway, she did this beautiful language on me, and I felt this alignment come in. And when she'd finished, I said, what can I expect? And she said, I have no idea. She said, all I was the channel for it. So I went all the way back to New Zealand, and it was only when I was over here, I sat in deep communion with the team, and I said, so what happens now? And they said, about a year, dear one, of integration, and you will find out for yourself. And a year later, I was sitting away in the mountains here in New Zealand, somewhere with friends, and the next minute I had all these gold threads, little hieroglyphs, start pouring into my crown chakra, and I thought, oh, feeling this, seeing this in my inner vision, and the next minute my mouth opened and out came this beautiful language, light language, and I just stood my friends in front of me and I said, tell me how this feels to you. And I opened and I did it, and they could feel it right, one in their solar plexus, two in their hearts, and they said it was really, really beautiful. So for many years I used that light language with my clients, and it would just come when it was needed and that. And I don't use it so often in the last year or two. It's been more about being learning to be grounded and being here, but sometimes I sing it to myself. I'll find I'll be doing something and I'll just start singing in the light language, you know, either in my mind or just quietly to myself. So yes, so that's another language that's sort of come to me from the cosmos and past times or different timelines and different dimensions, and there's some beautiful languages out there that are coming through people now. So yeah, I've probably gone off track a few times here, but it just feels
no
lovely.
Such thing.
Just feels lovely to be able to sit here with three beautiful sisters who have a life that's very similar, and just be able to speak about this on this level.
Yeah.
Yes. And, oh, wow. Thank you so much for sharing that, Janine. Of course, I've heard, pieces of this from the past when we've connected, but just hearing it all together like that, it's just, no, there's no such thing as getting off the path, or, it comes in because it's meant to come in. So quick question for you, Janine, just for clarity. It sounds to me like you've always been connected and always heard them. Did you ever have a time in your life when you felt disconnected from it and you had to come back to it?
I deliberately, by the time I was 8, I had stopped my seeing of them. So I was so different to everybody else around me, and I got tired of being different and being labelled by my family. And my brothers would often say, so what's the weather like on planet Janine today? And, just all the time. So I worked very hard at stopping my vision and not being able to see. And I remember at about 8 or 9, I actually remember going, yes, I've done it. Yep. I don't see them anymore,
Yeah.
So it's I've gone right off track. What was your question again, Eileen?
See, the question was, have you ever pushed them away or disconnected from them? So, yes. Okay. Are we back?
I'm back here. I'm back. When I was a teenager, I became very rebellious, and I deliberately swung on my heel and walked away from everything that I knew, and hugely distracted myself by becoming human. That's how I thought it to myself.
Yeah.
I'm going to become human. I'm going to be fully human. I'm going to be nothing but human. I'm going to party. I'm going to do naughty things all the time. I'm going to all of life. And I was really trying to find this just human piece in me and nothing else,
Yeah.
So climb out my window and go to parties when mum and dad thought I was asleep in bed, and you know, I was on the back of motorbikes having a good time with people, and you know, and then one day I just got really tired of that, and I thought, have I been happy in all that, you know? And really no. And did I discover anything? Did I find any piece of myself that I didn't know before? No. So apart from that I didn't have the lightness and feel the loving connection that I had. So I was about 18 or 19 when I started to move back round, and then in opening to that part of myself again, I got an invitation to become part of a group. So that really set me back on track again, to be in a group where everybody else in that room saw me as I saw them, and we understood each other, you know. So yes, there was times where I really disconnected, but I have never ever disconnected or walked away from it since that time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I thank you. I very much appreciate, you know, from each of us, I very much appreciate hearing about these aspects of it too. So many times when, you know, we've been talking in public about it, or, you know, we want to make a good impression, we have a tendency to just make it all, you know, as the some of the ufology group likes to name us, the love and light experiencers. And so, and yeah, you're damn right, we're love and light experiencers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because good luck embodying that. I mean, if you're not ready for it. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength to do that. So, and it also involves these darker times, you know, dark nights of the soul, extreme dark nights of the soul. That have you on your knees, and, you know, being suicidal, and, you know, so these kinds of things, which I can certainly share, you know, about more. But did you, Zuzanna or Jeannie, have any particular questions for Janine?
I
Or
didn't
comments?
out my head. So I hope, Janine, we can talk more in the future, because there's a lot there that I wanted to say. You know, I related to it. It's just really great to hear all of that.
And we will definitely be talking again. So yeah. So thank you. Yes, it's just ditto on so many things, Janine. So Jeannie is living in
Western Maryland.
Western Maryland. Yeah, and I just want to say quickly that all of us have other conversations that we've done, and I'll always link to those, so that if you're interested in any particular one of us that's speaking, you can go watch the individual ones or some of the other group ones that we've made and we will continue to make. So with that, Jeannie, please share with us about your evolution.
Yeah, before I jump in, I did have a question for you, Janine. I'm especially fascinated by the light language that you were talking about, and just wondering how that presents itself to you. Is that something you can call forward and connect to intentionally, or is it something that comes through during another process or communication?
It sits inside me along with English, with the human language. It just sits there the whole time, and all I have to do is take a breath in, and I just I move to it, and then so I speak it as clearly and as knowingly as I do the human language.
That's really cool.
That is a fascinating thing.
It's a vibrational language, so it's actually felt. So it's rather than understood with the mind, it's way higher, on a higher level than the mind. So it's felt by the person, and I've actually had people drop to their knees sobbing when I've spoken it, and so they've just had their heart opened and really felt it on that deep level. So
yeah, beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. Okay. I don't know where to start. So the question, so interesting to me, everybody here has said, I got off track, and I'm thinking, I don't even know really what the question is. And I just am so overjoyed by the sharing. So thank you all for your presence and for inviting me to be here as well. I think if I'm going to look at my experiences and how my life has unfolded, it's been an experiential process. You know, I've come to the realization that there's a part of me that's really quite skeptical, which is really interesting to me, because I was, prior to now time, pretty judgmental of others who were skeptical, you know. There's so much more. And I knew that because I was experiencing it, but I can really see now, looking back, the progression of my understanding of what that is. And I really needed these tangible experiences that were over the top to kind of get me, oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
So just to kind of, you know, give a sense of what those are for me, you know, a lot of this started for me at a very young age, similar to you all. And I didn't have any reference point for understanding it, but I found that the overall feelings of it were either curiosity, really, really intense curiosity, or fear. And it was kind of one or the other. I really didn't have much in between at the beginning when I was young. I can remember, you know, and I'm like all over the place in my head, like which one am I going to pull forward here? That kept coming to me as everybody was talking, and I don't know that there's a reason for it, but this was later, after I had gone through my teen years, early 20s. And as you were kind of inviting us to share as well, Eileen, there were many times in my life when it's not so much that I rebelled against it, but I tried really hard to shut it down so I could feel normal. And I would kind of put on these clothes of, this is what a normal life looks like. And this
Oh yeah.
I went in and out of periods of that. But the one experience in particular that comes to mind, actually there's several, but that give me this experiential aspect that's so overwhelming and big that I have to acknowledge it, was one that was similar to a Kundalini type experience. And I don't know if that's what it was. Some experiences I couldn't categorize. You know, I didn't really know what they were prior, and then I would have this event, and then I would go out and ask questions and do some research, and like, what the heck just happened to me? And that one kind of landed the most. It fit the best. But it gave me, the ones that were experiential like this, would always leave me changed. And this one was this very visceral feeling of energy that started to move up and down my spine. And it wasn't, you know, it's not like emotion or a feeling of energy walking into a space, or, you know, the tone of a group of people. And it wasn't like that. That's always kind of vague for me. And I am sensitive to that, but this was like something just plugged my back into a light socket. Yeah. You could feel, it was like an electric shock. It wasn't unpleasant, but it was very, very disorienting. And it quickly ramped up to the point where I can remember trying to steady myself. Now, I wasn't actually in a waking state where I was aware. Most of these experiences for me have occurred in what I call an in-between state. Almost all of the time I'm lying down, either trying to fall asleep or just waking up. I've already woken up and I'm drifting again, or it's kind of, you know, that it's just that in between. That's what I've always called it. It's in between. I'm not asleep, but I'm not alert. So this was that's where I was at. So I knew, and I was aware that I was horizontal, but I still felt like I had to steady myself. And I can remember kind of trying to throw my arms out to grab onto something. And it immediately, when it got to its peak, I knew that they were here. You know, it was, oh, and that was also overwhelming because I didn't feel prepared. You know, it wasn't like, you know, somebody sends you a message and, hey, let's meet up at 3 o'clock and you have a little bit of time to prepare. And
yeah, I never had that, no.
It was very disorienting and also overwhelming and shocking. And I you know, after I was able to steady myself a little bit and feeling this overwhelming high frequency of energy, my awareness went to my right, and that's when I saw 2 beings. And there was no interaction. It was just a moment. It was a moment of acknowledgement where there was eye contact and connection. And the exchange was just the acknowledgement of, I see you, you see me, and I know that you see me, and you know that I see you. That was it. And it immediately, just as quickly, faded, and I came back down. But there was another aspect of this that, when I say these big experiences have changed me, when I was at that peak, one of the, I don't know if I would call it like a side effect or just a level of awareness of being in that higher frequency, was that I became instantly aware of every single cell in my body at exactly the same time, which is impossible in this beta state brain. You know, I could stare at my finger and look at a piece of it under a microscope and look at 1 or 2 cells at a time. But in that state of high energy, I was as equally aware of every cell everywhere. And what was impressed upon me when I had that awareness was that they were all sentient. There was no cells are, you know, independent as far as doing their little job in the organs or wherever they are, or in the brain. Every cell was its own being.
Yes.
And it just completely knocked me off my feet. And I have since then, that was, again, you know, looking at these kind of bigger events, that was one that completely changed my worldview. You know, it was a paradigm breaker. That's like, all of these events shatter the paradigm, yeah, wherever you are. But, you know, there are these levels of them that just, right, my little boxes in my brain as well. One of them, because I had knowledge that there was so much more to this idea of being self-aware than I had thought prior. And it brought me to a place of realizing that I was, you know, already knowing that there's more to reality and we're more than a mind and a body. I had that part, but I really didn't understand the degree to which I was just a piece of this whole, everything was part of that, and every piece of it, even the inanimate objects and, you know, the 3-dimensional world that we live in, everything has its own sentient energy within it. And it was mind-blowing, as I don't really have good words for it. So for me, I think that the method of communication has been in that in-between state. That's where the majority of it occurs. And I have learned to be as responsive to it as I can. I can feel when there's a connection that's being made to me, and I get really sleepy, and I get really sleepy at very awkward times. So but I've gotten better at being able to respond to that. You know, I can trust that, oh, okay, I know there's a connection here. There's information that's going to be exchanged. If I can, I'm going to go lie down and, you know, say I'm going to go take a nap, or, you know, whatever that is. And it has enabled me to strengthen that communication and that dialogue. Early on, you know, like when I was younger, I fought it. You know, it's like, oh, this is not a good time to be sleepy. I need to take care of the kids, or I need to, you know, I need to do whatever it is that this normal life body is supposed to be doing. And if I would miss it, then it would it wouldn't come, you know, that connection would be lost. So there was a lot of that kind of thing happening for me, where I was trying to make it be all on my terms. And I found, you know, just the wisdom of years of experience of this, if I can go with the flow, not only is it feeding and nourishing me more, but the communications are more clear and more frequent. So that has just been, you know, the lesson of living with it for many, many years. As far as kind of where I am now, you know, a lot of this for me has come in waves, and I think tied to that level of acceptance that I would be carrying or not carrying in my life, which is part of it. But there's also, there have been times that feel like it's not at all connected to that. You know, it's just like, this is out of the blue, and I don't really know what to do with this. And so, but back to this theme of having the experiences inform me and having them force me to grow. Another big chunky aspect of that was physical touch, you know, like feeling like as if, you know, we were to touch hands or my arm, physical pressure, and that I was not okay with it. You know, it's like, I'm good with the communications, I'm good with the information, just don't touch me. And I think I made that, I don't know, that rule early on. I had an experience way back when I was my early 20s at a girlfriend's house, and she had left for a couple of weeks to be away, and I was living in this apartment by myself, and it was like a ghost interaction, and it was not cool. You know, I felt touched, pressure on me, and it was very threatening. And I know at the time it was like, that's off limits, you know, I'm not cool with that. So I had this big stretch of time between then and, you know, a decade of having a lot of experiences that I was okay with it. You know, it's like, it was, and it's so funny. Zuzanna mentioned that we had some dialogues on email. What is so ironic and funny to me, and it's like, yeah, the universe has a sense of humor. It's like, I was totally okay with the whole ET aspect of this, but don't talk to me about ghosts.
That's funny.
I'm like, really? How is that? I don't know. It just,
that's where I draw the line.
I did. I had to draw the line. And so lo and behold, I was given a really, really big, eye-opening, you can't deny this. All of this is part of the unfolding of consciousness. It's not just the little pieces that you can pick out and say you're okay with. It's everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, and back to how that was done, how I was given that opportunity to evolve into my awareness of it. It was the physical touch, and I had another interaction a few years ago where I felt a hand hold my hand, and it just, and then there were so many details, corroboration with other people that were in the shared experience that I couldn't deny it. And so it was another one of those that's breaking the boxes in my head. And I really thought I was okay with this, but now I think I'm crazy and I don't know really what to do. So my evolution through it all has been kind of in these quantum leaps. It's like I go along for a while. Okay, it's okay. I'm cool with this, and I'm weird, and these are the things that happen to me, and I'm good in my own little vacuum of my mind because I didn't share it with anybody. And then something would happen that would just like, okay, step it up. And,
all right, here we go again. Yep.
And then it would be okay for a little while, and I would sort of integrate, and that's kind of, I guess that last question, where am I right now? I feel like I'm in an integration phase where everything is really finally starting to make sense, not just from an experiential point of view and, like what does this all mean, or how does it fit into this larger, greater reality that we're part of and that I feel is coming into the collective awareness. Not that it's coming, it's here, but that the awareness is becoming aware of it. And for me, it's that, but it's also looking at my life path, you know, and how all of the things that I've experienced in the human realm, you know, like those pieces of my story are, it's like that I think you used a word last time, Eileen, and I don't remember what you were talking about, but it's that kerplunk feeling. And I was like, yes, that's it. And it, you know, it's not something that is, again, just like this conversation right now, helping us to find ways to articulate not only the experiences themselves, you know, or detail, how do I describe a color that doesn't exist here? You know, it's like, how do we language the things that we've experienced, but then also how do we language the knowing that comes after? How do we describe that feeling? And for me, it really is a feeling. It's a calm centeredness that expands without effort. You know, it's like when I've gone in and out of meditation practices, the big struggle for me, of course, for a lot of people, is to quiet the mind. You know, how do I calm the mind chatter? But when I follow this path of knowing and following the feeling of what is the next right step for me, even if it looks really, really illogical, when I the other side of it, the stillness is effortless. It's like I don't have to try to quiet the mind. It's just this centered expansion of peace that gets a little bigger, and it gets a little bigger. And it's that word kerplunk was like, yes, and then the pieces fall into that, and they feel like they're at home. So I really liked that word, and just kind of wanted to bring that background.
Actually,
I don't know.
and actually it was ka-chunk, but I understand.
Okay. I just put my spin on
Yeah,
it.
you did. Yes, you translated it. Yes.
So, I don't know. Did I?
Oh God, yes. I'm in pure heaven just listening to you guys. It's like I'm gonna have a neck ache from my. Yeah. Oh, that was amazing. And it's amazing because I feel the vibration in me when each one of you talks. It's like you're giving me that reflection, and you're giving me that validation, and oh my God, and I've talked with all of you guys before, but now we take it a little deeper, we take it further, and then more starts to emerge, more layers of this and more ka-chunks, right?
I think, yeah, and I think too, Eileen, just speaking to that right there, is that we've all had probably even more experiences than what we know individually.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
So I know the talking and the sharing is allowing it to surface, and it's, wow, okay, yeah, there was that too.
Yeah.
And me this perspective here, and it's fun to share, and then it kind of sparks maybe a memory in somebody else and brings something else to the surface. And I love that part of it, because it just feels like this awesome unfolding of awareness that's like so ramped up as far as the speed isn't the right word, but just this time that we're in right now, that the opportunity is right for these quantum leaps, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yes, and to speak to what you just mentioned about just reflection basically with each other, and bringing these, kind of just unraveling all of this in the present moment. We can talk about the past, we can bring that in, but what the magic of what's happening here is just in our speaking our truth with each other and sharing these things, and then feeling that empowerment, right? So Jeannie, when you were talking about that energy, then it's like, oh, I can talk more about that because Jeannie's talking about it, right? Like I wouldn't have ever thought to bring these aspects of me up, because as with all of you, I'm sure, like in what Jeannie just said, there's so much more that we're going to be unpacking if it's relevant in the moment, right?
Yeah, unpacking is a great word.
Yeah, so
everybody has sparked memories and thoughts, and I could say this, both Janine and Jeannie and Eileen.
Yeah,
book and everything like that. But then it moves so fast
Yeah.
that I don't want to miss what you guys are saying. So
Yeah.
that's why I didn't like have any questions or anything like that. It was just like, whoa, that was
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
fast.
And I have to really stop myself as usual to, I want to talk about that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So any other questions or comments for Jeannie?
Yes. For me, you know how when somebody says something sometimes where you get a deep aha moment. It's like when you were talking about the cells all being a being in their own right, I can't remember your exact words, but all being a being in their own right, it reminded me when I was a little child and I just got to get this. So I had this knowing and this vision of every cell was like a planet within our universe. So every cell was a planet within our bodies, and with life on. Every cell had life on and in it, and was in the universe of our bodies. And then if we look at the universe with all the stars and the planets and all the life out there, was that part of a greater being that we were in a cell of on our planet? So, and then of course you can take it more and more and more and more. So that, and I hadn't had that memory for a very, very long time. And that's, and I got the team said, listen, they went, listen, as you were speaking. And it's like, oh, okay, took me right back to the moment where I had that remembrance going on. So thank you for that.
That's cool. Thank you. Give me goosebumps.
I love that. I love that. Wow. You know, silly me thinking this was going to be an hour or so, but
I want to hear your involvement, Eileen.
I want to try and keep it under 2 hours. But, you know, silly me, I think this is just the most fascinating thing I've ever heard in all of my life. And, you know, it's like, oh, this is just, everyone's going to love this. And I'm always wrong about that. I have fit in no narrative, no category, no nothing. Like you, Jeannie, when you mentioned that, you know, you have the experience and you go, well, what the hell was that? And so, you know, when I'm younger, it's like you go to the library, you go to the bookstore, you know, we didn't have the internet I didn't for a lot of the experiences. So you just kind of, you know, go try and find it.
Right.
What is it? What is it? And then it gives you definitions and you go, well, it was kind of like that. So I guess I'll go with that word, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not.
It's not.
It's never wholly that has been written in a book by someone else. There are aspects of it. There's a vibration of it at times. That's what I would mostly go by is, oh, I'm vibrating when I'm reading this. So this is very relevant or, you know, resonant for me. So I need to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
So the evolution for me, as a child, I relate to what a few of us have said, or all of us have said here, to it being very connected, very natural, but of course, you know, you're here with me, and we talk, we dialogue in our heads or in our cells, in my cells, and I have even described the communion as being all the cells are active and online, and this is how we commune. It's a vibrational like bubble of light and sound for me. And so I I'm describing that as a feeling from childhood, where it was just absolutely normal, natural, whatever. And then it was the process of family members and teachers saying, you know, what the hell are you talking about, right? And I'm sure you can all relate to that.
Absolutely.
And then, you know, the decline of self-esteem, the withdrawal, the wondering who the hell am I, you know, just going in and out of this over my lifetime. But the delight, I remember delight in my early teens with these visitations where the dialogue was back, and I've talked about this in a couple of talks that I've done, where I could understand the language again, and I didn't have the fear anymore, because I had to acclimate to it again. I had to acclimate to the vibrations of it again, and remember that this is who I am. But that was after a few years period in my childhood of feeling the shame of who I am and stuffing it. So there was even a childhood time that I made the conscious decision that I don't want to be like this. I want to be like everybody else. And that happened, I would say maybe a half dozen times throughout my life, going through these cycles. So it would come back. I would feel fearful again with the visitations, and these were orbs of light. These were beings, light beings on the side of my bed. This was me hovering above my bed, floating above my bed, and then just like laughter and delight as they played with me. The orbs of light would make me laugh. It reminded me a lot of my cat, Maya, who has since passed, but she used to just spontaneously do stuff that if I was down or whatever, she was my comedian cat. She would just do something super funny out of the blue, and I would just bust up laughing. And it always reminded me of that feeling with these beings, you know, in my younger years, just trying to lift me out of the the doom and gloom of being human. You know? Like, it's okay, it's all for a reason. So the energetic, I started singing when I was about 11, and this presence coached me in how to sing, and I've talked about that as well, both in the book and out in public presentations, which has been very healing for me to step into, you know, to gather the courage to do this and to speak it to the public. But that's part of my path, and that's not everybody's path, but that I realize that's part of my path, is to kind of be a spokesperson for, you know, not only myself and my life and what I learned, but to bring us together to share in this way, because it is very, very important for those who are interested in learning more about this. It's important to have the material for them to receive, to take in, because I couldn't find what I wanted to do out there anywhere. I mean, pieces of it here and there, but I couldn't find this. So it was like, I guess I gotta create it. And I tried many times and failed many times. Just, you know, more shame, more anger, you know, like you inspire me to move and to share and to do, and then I get more judgment. I get more misunderstanding, and then invisibility too, because what I share and speak doesn't land in any streams of media that is hitting consciousness of the collective. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like I'm that invisibility factor has
Totally.
been so painful to me in my life. It's like, hello, I'm here. Do you hear? Can you hear me? And sometimes I feel like a ghost.
Yes.
I've even written lyrics and sung songs about this. I feel like a ghost in the in-between. And so
probably were, you know, we probably have been. I don't mean that, I sort of mean that metaphorically or something like that. We have been until now, I think.
Right. And so then the process of claiming it and embodying it, I feel, is that stepping out and saying, okay, I commit to fully being here. So maybe others can hear and see me now because I'm committing to this, right? So the other aspects of what came up for me and what I'd like to share is what Jeanne was saying about the energy, the bioenergetic events. That's what I decided. I've used the word Koyopa, the Mayan term for Kundalini, and that's how I wrote my book with that title, because the definitions resonated with me. So I did know when they were coming, probably about maybe up to a half hour before. The telltale signals was, the first thing I would feel is the tingling in the palm of my hand. And then I would feel tingling all around my lips. And very distinct. Don't ever feel it. Haven't ever felt that any other time except when a visit was going to happen. So the lips would tingle, palms would tingle, especially the right. And my heart would start warming and expanding. And sometimes I would have a metallic flavor in my mouth. And don't know how else to describe that, except there was a taste. And the communication that would occur at this time there would be an understanding that my body and energetics were being changed to adapt to this. So this happened all throughout pretty much my adult life, but really increased in the early 90s, all the way through it hasn't happened to this degree because it's pretty much integrated now. But what would happen is I would wake up in my bed and I would feel the presence. And then it would build and build and build and build. And then pretty soon my whole back would arch up off the bed and I would just vibrate. Now, to someone else, it probably looked like I was having some kind of a seizure, but I was not. I was riding this out. I wasn't afraid. I knew inside myself that there was a reason for it. And just like all the other experiences where, like when I gave birth to a baby, and everyone else has these scary, terrifying, they took my baby and they, how dare they impregnate me? And, and I'm sorry that it was painful. I'm sorry that it was traumatic, but why was mine one of the most beautiful experiences I ever had. Why I understood, even after I had the baby, the fuzzy-faced beings, women, whom I loved, said, you know, just nodded, and inside, it's like, okay, this was the agreement, right? Yep. Yes. Didn't make it any less painful. It was painful. But so I've had a wide variety of these kinds of experiences, but the evolution of it has always been to have big experiences, bioenergetically as well, and then expand, adapt, integrate, become this, find a way to be okay with this in the world, find a way to just be aware not to suppress these things. It doesn't mean I have to get, on a bullhorn and walk around and announce these things, but don't dishonor it or disregard it within myself and my own life. It's like I had to find a way to honor this on my own in relationship with these beings. So the communication was always there. It started with writing early on. The ecstatic poetry events that Zuzanna mentioned, I've had a lot of ecstatic experiences, and a lot of times the poetry would come through. And it amazed me because I wasn't writing the poetry, I was speaking it. And it was like, there's a part of me, it was coming out, and there was a part of me who's like, I got to get this down. This is beautiful. But it wasn't me, thinking it and going, what would rhyme with love?
Right.
So, and as a songwriter, I have to relate this back to you, Janine. After the major bioenergetic event in 1998, the data, the way that it would come to me before was still very similar to what you described. But after the event, after I had laid on the couch for 3 days, and then I bumped long story, but I bumped a zither that someone in the audience had given me as a gift, one of my gigs. And I bumped it with the rag that I moved, and it did these 3 notes. And they just rung out, and they rung through me. And then I went, uh-oh, something's happening. And it was like, go to the piano, which I hadn't played in forever. It was covered over. I had to take stuff off, and I had to figure out how to turn it on. And, it'd just been so long. I just loved this thing like a piece of furniture that I never used, right, for years. And so the songs were balls of light. And so when I sat down to I don't know what, the first time, when it was happening, I didn't know. But I remember distinctly that little thread sticking out of that ball of light, and that it was my choice to tug on it. And when I did tug on it, all this music came, all the, I was trying to find the chords and write the words. That was all coming at once. And it wasn't like it was some kind of a, and now you will be a scribe and we will give you this amazing cosmic music. It wasn't that at all. It became a dialogue between myself and this presence. So all the music that I've written, the first CD was basically from that event. The subsequent music that happened was me integrating it, me asking questions, me, what's happening, or this is how I feel when you are here. This is, you know, and so everybody at my gigs was thinking that I was singing these love songs like everybody else. And they were love songs, but it was an incredible love affair that I could not talk about. Right? So I relate very much to the bodies of information and data. I started to, bringing back in the channeling, Zuzanna, people kept telling me, really, you know, if you have these experiences, you know, the people I shared it with, you should really think about channeling. So it's like, channeling. Okay. I had seen channels, I'd gone to channels. The one channel that I was guided to go see back in the 80s was Bashar. And I was very resistant. But the energy, I don't know if you guys experience this, but the energy, when you're guided to do something, it's like those cells light up and they go, okay, we're doing this now. And, you know, and it's like I pick up this newspaper and turn the page, and that's where you're going. I mean, it was like this magnetic energy, right? So that, and it was Bashar in 1986 was the first time. And when I sat down, I complained the whole time, like, what the hell am I doing? This is crazy. You know, the skeptic, right, Jeanne?
Yes.
And then I sat down and it was like, okay, all right. And then Daryl starts going, okay, well, I'm going to be going into it. And he's explaining it. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then he starts going into it. And my whole body just went, oh, you know, like, I know this energy. Oh. Didn't have to question that anymore, because the energy talks to you, right? It's like, okay, got it. Thank you.
Yes.
So Daryl's just been a friend in my life, and also a very, very important piece in my, you know, people like that came along and validated me to where I could keep going and not want to keep, you know, killing myself or fantasizing about leaving here. That would give me that, what I needed. Absolutely would need that reflection. So magic happened, went to Hawaii, worked with a mentor, another channel there, and I could not learn how to channel. I didn't know. It was odd to me. It was a way that was being taught, and I get it. And I understand that that's how people channel, but I couldn't go, okay, tell me that. Okay, practice. Nothing. And then in 2005, this whole practice came through and said, this is how you connect, and this is how you will bring through the messages. So I've been bringing through those messages verbally ever since. But I really hesitate to call it channeling.
Yeah, see, I'm thinking that I need to call it something else too, because it's such a it has such a charge, or I mean, you know, a specific sort of image or something around it. I don't know. You use the word
connotations, yeah. Frequency translator.
Transmissions, you've called it. That sounds good to me. I don't know. I'm sort of in the process of I don't.
The thing is it's not I'm not channeling anybody. I'm not, they've never gotten, early on I got the names because my teacher said I should get names. So it was actually kind of funny how the names came, but, to comply.
Right.
But it's aspects of me. It's us reconnecting with aspects of ourselves. And so they didn't like come into me and say, okay, now we're going to take over here and we're going to teach everybody.
Right.
And that was always like, I can't do that. I just can't. That's not who I am. Respect people who, absolutely respect, Daryl Anka, Robert Shapiro, Lee Carroll. I got this message to go connect with all of them, right? This is fascinating. I don't fully know all the answers or, the reasons for this, but one day I drove from San Diego to Scottsdale, Arizona, because you have to go see Lee Carroll. So I did. And it was an incredible energetic experience that they don't know about, the people that were around. It was an amazing gift to me. And I'll just leave it at that. I mean, it was a great experience and all, but so this is the communion happens in the way that I can engage with it. I can open myself up to it. Like when I do the groups, the last few groups I've done, the presence comes in and I just go, okay, whatever wants to come through for this particular energetic collective of beings. So sometimes one of the messages will come through, and other times I will sing in that foreign language. And it's like when I started hearing people go, oh, it's called light language. Oh, okay, I'll call it light language then. I didn't know what it was called. It was just the spontaneous, I call them the mother songs, because I feel the mother's energy when I'm singing those sounds and tones. But I resisted that for a while, simply because I'm resistant to falling into any categories,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Names, boxes,
Yes.
categories, because I don't like watching the mind, the intellect go to, oh, I know what you're doing that. And then all the other streams of information, of data, of healing gets blocked because the mind goes, I know what this is, and just opens that channel, right? And so that's why I've been guided, and I always do my best to just make up new words, because this is such an incredible experience that my motive, my intent, my inspiration, my passion is to help people remember who they are. And that's the very first thing that I said when I had one of my bigger experiences after I came out of it. It was in meditation. I said, my life from this moment forward is to help people to feel this so that they know the truth of who they are. And that's what I've been trying to do ever since. And I say trying because it's been a dance to try and cut through the old paradigm and that's why I feel so free at this time with, all the systems are shut down, right? So that creates an opening. And I'm not discounting, the pain and suffering that's occurring now on this planet. It's I'm very, very sorry that people suffer and grieve and are having to process so much pain and sorrow through death and transformation in that way. I also know at the same time that this is the timing of this shift from old paradigm to new, or old world to new. So I feel, and have been guided, that those that I bring together are representative of the new world. We're not trying to perpetuate any old stories from the past. We're trying to be present with this energy that informs us, right? Doing our best to, to stay in integrity with this, and to really, every day I pray and ask, just guide me, show me, how can I be of service now? That is all I am here for. And I'm not interested in anything else. Nothing. I have no ties. It's like, give me some time to be alone, and I create this. I don't have to go to a job. I don't have to, work. I write music. I wrote a song the other day, and I've been working on it. And pure joy, because there's the openings and the spaces for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's where I am now, is always listening. Okay, what do I need to know? Where am I going? Who am I talking to? And it's just learning how to live in and with this presence, to be it the best that I can, to practice that. And if I take a dip, which sometimes I take little dips, but I know now how to deal with it, because I was taught. It's like, oh, there's that. Instead of suppressing it or turning, and I think I'll have another donut, which still happens. Yes, indeed. I turn and I face it. All right, let's have a dialogue, right? Let's do this. And there's always information that can come when you look at it head on and you're present with it. I'm not going to do this dance. I need this resolved right now. I don't have the energy for it. And the other thing that just popped into my head is I still carry a river rock that presented itself to me in 2005 in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I didn't know that you could commune with a stone, like it would show you things. And it was overwhelming energy. I fell to my knees with the energy of this. Okay, here's your stone. This is yours. I have been carrying it with me ever since. When I meditate, when I connect, when I bring through messages, when I don't have to have it, but I prefer to hold it, because it's a very intelligent presence that's connected to the mother. And I don't know. I know that sounds crazy. Believe me, I know what this sounds like to people. Still, it's more real than what people think is real.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Eileen, I just wanted to, one of the things when I started to jump in there, and sorry, I was almost interrupting you when you were talking. I was just like, wait. You were talking about wanting to make up, and you do this practice of making up new words. And I was just like, oh man, for a good, 3 or 4 years now, I've been, and I shared it with the one friend of mine. We were talking pretty frequently. We don't anymore, but this part of it has not faded at all for me, is wanting to create a whole new dictionary And because
Yeah.
I think that all of the words that are used are so unconscious for most people. And I'll give you an example. Surrender, you know, the idea of surrender. It's like one of the tenets of all the healers out there and therapists, and we need to surrender. But it comes with all of these rules that most people are aware of. It's surrender to, surrender. So I'm surrendering to something. So that means I need an authority. I have to surrender to something above me, which means I don't know enough to know for myself, which means I'm unworthy. I mean, I'm like, no. We need a whole nother word. We're not surrendering to fear, which that's really what that story says to me. Surrender to means there's an energy of fear underlying something. I mean, that's what happens when people wave the white flag in war. They surrender to the enemy, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's no word for surrendering in love where you're letting go. I mean, we could talk about it and I could describe it.
Right.
Yeah,
But
I've
there's
thought about this for a long time.
There's no,
We need new words for all aspects of mind. You know, we
Yes.
say the word mind, and it means 50,000 different things.
Yes.
yeah. But that one in particular, and there's just so many that, you know, come to me because I write a lot too. And I'm like, no, that's not the right word. If I use that word, I can feel how it's going to land because of the history of the word and all of the stories that are underneath it that hold it up that you may be consciously aware of. Probably most of them are unconscious.
Mhm.
I'm like, a whole new word. Okay, what am I going to use?
Yeah.
At that, I'm like, yes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So,
And what
I
I'm
so resonate with that.
and when I'm translating the frequency data, when I bring through a message, I will go, okay, I can't even explain how this works, and I don't know if you guys could either. But it's like the streaming starts to happen, and then I'm unpacking, I'm decoding, I'm okay, all right. And so at a certain point, I mean, when I do a session with somebody, it's me, and then, you know, it's always off to the right. I noticed a couple of you did this. That's
Yeah. Always off to the right.
yeah. And so it's this, okay, but, you know, and it's like getting the data in a delayed way that way. And then in 2005, with this practice they gave me, this is how I was able to, I just went boom. And I was translating in real time. But I can say something like, blah, 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 blah. No, that's not my body. Everything stops. And I go, oh, okay. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay. That's okay. You know, it's like, it checks me about the translation. And there are times too when I'm like in the background and this is streaming and the words are coming out of my mouth and I'm in the background going, no, that's too much. That people are gonna think I'm crazy if you keep saying that, you know. So there's that piece of me that's still there protesting sometimes, like I'm always don't want to upset anybody, right? You know, people will get upset. So that's been a practice for me too, is to go, okay, I trust more. So it is a process of trusting this too, because you have to see the evidence. You have to see that this really has had an important impact on my life and others around me that have taken this data in. And mostly if you listen to it, it's not appealing to the old paradigm mind. It's boring. But if you keep listening to it and absorbing the energy data, the words you find out are just like these little placeholders that the real information is when it's absorbed into your cells, right? And that's when these transformations can start to occur for people. But that's a huge claim for me to go, hey, everybody, if you listen to these, you're going to be transformed. You know, good luck with, you know, getting that across from the person who's doing the work. You know, if you have someone else point to it and say, this affected me, then that's better. But that's been a real challenge for me. And which kind of makes me think our next talk will be about really getting down and dirty with what were the toughest times? You know, how did you get through it? What did you learn from those really, really tough times? Because I think that is almost more important at this point than talking about the wonder of it all, because I know the wonder of it all. I had to go through the shit of it all to get to the wonder of it all.
Absolutely, absolutely. And to know that you can get out the other side,
Yes.
that would be helpful to other people who, if they would listen to it, you know. And I think it would be very healing for, you know, personally, you know, being able to articulate that and be heard, you know.
Right, exactly. Because I mean, I'm not wanting to revisit the pain. I want to show the transformational path.
And come out of something that's really intensely bad.
Right. Yeah. Like how, as a human being, do you, how are you born here? And immediately start having these experiences, and then boom, you find out no one else is having these experiences. See, yeah, you just winced. It's like, yeah, like that moment when you go, oh shit, what's this about? Right? And then trusting. And I am so glad, I just want to say I'm so glad I trusted.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah, me too.
So, any parting thoughts, words? How are you feeling?
You know, just thank you for this. You know, it's wonderful to hear everybody's information and all the, you know, little lights that come on through hearing this. It's just unbelievably great.
I agree.
I love the fact that we're stepping out, that there's more and more stepping out and allowing ourselves and themselves to be seen. You know, because we're the examples for others to do the same.
Absolutely.
So, you know,
Yes. And
just really,
like I needed a role model, you know, somebody else
I
out
do
here
it.
needs role models, you know.
I'm giving this to my young self who was desperate for somebody like us to
yes.
speak this out loud.
Yes.
Right? Just desperate. I would have given anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I call all of us the quiet ones. I know I mentioned that before, but that came to me several years ago, and I could see, like you, Eileen, a time when there would be a rising, maybe, or it's not exactly the right word, where the invisibility factor is removed and we are seen, and in the sharing and the conversations and the connections, it's a boost in confidence. You know, really, it's a knowing that, oh, it's not just me having this weird life experience over here in the corner of my world.
Mm-hmm.
Others, and we all share the same thread of, you know, message through the experience. And it's just like, wow, okay, more of that, and then it just grows, and then you connect to more, and then more come forward, and that's
the point right there.
That's the point. Yeah, that's the point.
Mm-hmm. Right, because sometimes I have wounding around, you know, don't be so big. Don't be, you know, can you just,
yeah.
You know, as you were sharing, Zuzanna, when you got that big gold light thing happening, and it's like, oh shit, I don't want to be seen, and oh, I'm sorry. You know, you feel like you have to apologize, and that's the part. Oh, I felt that one. Good. all the times I apologized for letting this flow, right?
Yeah.
Having to shut it down. This is a lot of, wounding around the feminine, of course we could talk forever about that, but just wounding in general. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. The wounding around having to make yourself small when you feel these huge experiences of connectedness. We don't talk about these things to say, look at us. It's really cool. Oh God, if you only knew how uncool it is and what a difficult life it has been. And I'm not trying to get sympathy, but I want to share in this way with all of you, and I want it to build. That's my intention, to give people permission, whether they call themselves an experiencer or not, just come into this resonance. And if it activates something in you, and some people could just go, I've brought through messages about this. People are in this presence of truth. They will get triggered in a good way.
Yeah.
They will start to remember things that they had either suppressed early in their childhood, or maybe pieces of themselves that actually want to come in now, but they just didn't have they're like looking for eye contact with the human, like, are you ready for this? Because I want to come in, we're going to do this, like you were sharing, Janine, about your operation, and just that entry of, a release of the old and a passing, changing of the guards, or whatever you want to say, of this new, larger presence that wants to live through us. And this is not an entity that is something that people immediately go to fear. I could just hear them all saying, a demon. The reason why it's taken so long in our lives to get to this place where we can even, look at us. We're not spring chickens here. Sorry. We get to a point where we can go, hey, yeah, I'm going to start telling the truth. Yeah, I'm doing this. I'm doing it. And then you represent the ladies that said yes to me and were willing to tell the truth. So thank you, because I can't do this by myself. So we have to have the courage to come out and do this. So that's my joy, is to watch this unfold. And are we ready to be seen? Yeah. Sometimes I go back and forth on that. Sometimes I pull back and I feel really vulnerable. And other times I'm like, yeah, I'm ready.
I think that's natural. We're sort of headed in a trajectory, and there's kind of like a little bit back and a little bit forward, a little bit back, a little bit forward, but we'll gain the trust through the faith of the process. And I think eventually, for me anyway, it will be, full steam ahead kind of thing.
Right. And I have also been attacked and judged so many times in my life that I can imagine being, the trolls and being attacked. And I'm not expecting it, but I'm not afraid of that, because I know the power of this light. I know the power of love. So, and I've seen and heard it all before. So, because we're badass, not spring chickens, right?
I love that. Be a great t-shirt. Badass, not spring chicken.
Badass women. Okay, I think we should probably close it now. Thank you all very much for your presence and for the magic, unpacking magic here. And I very much look forward to the next time we get together. And if you guys have any inspirations that come through dreams or just kind of land in you about, ooh, I think we need to talk about this next time, just let me know, because we're co-creating this.
Great.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. Lots of love to you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Eileen.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye-bye.